There are stories that echo through the stars. Tales of great wars, mighty empires, and species who once ruled entire sectors of the galaxy. But there is one story different from all the rest. It is the story of a race that vanished so completely that even their name was torn from every tongue. No one speaks it now. No records remain. It is as if they never existed at all. And yet, deep inside the memories of the oldest alien elders, there lingers a shadow of what once happened. They do not speak of it with joy. They speak of it with fear. The warning is always the same. Do not anger the humans. To young races of the galaxy, it sounded like a strange joke. How could humans, newcomers to the stars, children compared to ancient empires, be so dangerous? They had smaller fleets, fewer colonies, and their technology was not the most advanced. For many, humanity was a curiosity, nothing more. But the forgotten species made the mistake of taking that curiosity for weakness. It began quietly, like all tragedies do. Human explorers settled near the borders of that alien race. They came with trade ships, eager to share food, metals, and medicine. They built peaceful colonies, small shining cities under alien suns. For years, no conflict rose. Then, without warning, the first attacks began. A trading convoy disappeared. A farming colony sent one last message of fire before its signal went silent. Human patrols found drifting wrecks, scorched land, and fields turned into ash. Families vanished. Children were lost. At first, humanity searched for answers. Diplomats were sent. Messages asked for peace. No reply came, only more destruction. The forgotten race laughed at human attempts to reason. To them, humans were soft, naive, untested. They believed war would be quick. And so, they struck harder. Their fleets darkened human skies. Colonies burned. Survivors were dragged into cages, forced to labor, humiliated before alien crowds. Across the stars, other species watched. Some pitied humanity. Others smirked and said, "Perhaps this will teach the humans their place." But what the galaxy did not understand was this: humans could endure much. They could bend, they could bleed, but they did not break. Every scream, every loss, every ruined world. These were not the signs of surrender. They were fuel for something far more dangerous. Human councils met in silence. Leaders listened to the cries of survivors. Soldiers trained with clenched fists. Engineers opened secret projects long kept hidden. From the depths of human space, enormous shapes began to rise, machines of war unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Yet outwardly, humanity was calm. Their fleets stayed still. Their ambassadors spoke no threats. To outsiders, it looked as if humans were retreating, bowing their heads in defeat. The forgotten race believed they had won. They celebrated in their capitals. They broadcast their victories across the stars. Their arrogance grew so high that they mocked humans in public speeches, calling them the weak ones of Earth. But while they laughed, humans were preparing. And when humans prepare, the galaxy should tremble. The forgotten species could not see it, but the storm was already forming. A storm of steel, fire, and vengeance. Ships larger than mountains. Weapons designed not for defense, but for erasure. A new kind of fury was waking. One that would not stop until the enemy was ash and silence. Even then, no one imagined what was about to happen. No one thought a species so young could change the very history of the galaxy. No one believed that humans would erase another race so completely that not even their name would survive. But it was coming. The forgotten race had pushed too far. They had touched the one fire no one should ever play with, the anger of humanity. And when humans finally moved, when their silence broke, the stars themselves would carry the echo of what was about to unfold. That is why today no one remembers the name of that species. It has been swallowed by the void, erased by the very hands it once mocked. And only one lesson remains, whispered from one generation to the next across countless alien worlds. Never make the humans angry, for they may forgive, but they never forget. The forgotten species believed themselves untouchable. Their fleets stretched across entire sectors. Their banners waved proudly above conquered worlds, and their leaders thought no power could ever stand against them. To them, humans were nothing more than another primitive race, climbing too fast, reaching too far. When they first clashed with human colonies, victory had come easily. Their ships were larger, their weapons deadlier. They left smoking ruins behind and carried survivors away in chains. Each victory filled them with more pride, more arrogance. On their homeworld, their rulers broadcast grand speeches to cheering crowds. "We have taught the humans their place," they boasted. "These children of Earth will crawl before us." The people believed it. The soldiers believed it. And soon, even other alien empires began to believe it too. But while the galaxy watched, something else was happening in silence. Humans did not shout their anger. They did not cry for pity. They worked. In hidden shipyards, great machines took shape. In underground bunkers, soldiers sharpened their skills. Across their colonies, men and women swore oaths not of conquest, but of vengeance. Humanity's rage was not loud. It was patient. And that patience was what the forgotten species failed to understand. The invaders thought silence meant weakness, so they pushed harder. They began destroying entire settlements, not just military targets. They turned farms into wastelands, poisoned rivers, and left planets scarred beyond repair. In their arrogance, they even began carving their symbols into ruined human cities, as if declaring, "This will forever be ours." Prisoners were paraded in cages. Children were mocked in front of cameras. Their voices were broken, their tears broadcast across the stars. And the invaders laughed. They did not see that every broadcast, every insult, every humiliation was being stored by humans. Every scream was remembered. Every face of a fallen child was carved into memory. It was not weakness, it was fuel. The galaxy had seen human kindness before. They were known for trading openly, for sharing medicines, for forming bonds with neighbors. But now, the galaxy was about to see another side, the side no one had ever faced before. Yet still, the invaders continued. They grew careless. Their fleets stretched too thin. Their commanders grew fat with overconfidence. Some even began debating who would take Earth itself as a prize. To them, it was not a question of if humanity would fall, but when. They called humans slow learners. They called humans soft. They called humans the joke of the stars. And through it all, humans remained silent. It was the silence of a storm building over the horizon. The air was calm, but heavy with something unseen. The winds had not yet come, but everyone could feel them waiting. The forgotten species did not notice. They were too busy celebrating themselves. But other alien nations began to grow uneasy. They saw the stillness of human fleets, the calm of their leaders, the lack of desperation in their eyes. It was not the silence of surrender. It was the silence of preparation. Some warned the invaders. "Do not push them too far," they whispered. "Humans are not like us. They do not forget." The warnings were ignored. The forgotten species laughed even louder. They believed fear of humans was nothing more than superstition. And so, their arrogance grew into their greatest mistake. On one broadcast, their leader stood before a vast crowd, raising his arms proudly. Behind him, images of burning human colonies played on giant screens. He declared, "This is what happens to those who rise against us. The humans are broken. Soon their very world will kneel at our feet." The crowd roared with approval. They did not know that those words would be the last cheer of a doomed race. Because in that very moment, far away in secret shipyards, humanity's true answer was almost ready. Ships that dwarfed mountains floated silently in the void, waiting for the order to rise. Weapons never before seen in the galaxy hummed with restrained power. Soldiers stood in black armor, their eyes burning with determination. Humanity was no longer preparing for survival. They were preparing for erasure. The forgotten species could not see it. They were too blind, too arrogant, too proud. They believed the humans had already lost. They believed the silence was weakness. But soon the galaxy would learn the truth. The silence was not weakness. The silence was the promise of thunder. And when it finally broke, when the storm of humanity's wrath was unleashed, no one, not even the stars themselves, would forget what came next. For months, the galaxy had seen only silence from humanity. Their colonies burned, their people captured, their fleets seemingly broken. To outsiders, it looked as if the humans had accepted defeat. But inside the hidden shipyards of Earth and its farthest colonies, something ancient in human nature was stirring. It was not surrender. It was patience. In the black void beyond the eyes of the invaders, enormous shadows began to rise. Shipyards carved into asteroids and moons worked day and night. Sparks lit the dark as engineers welded steel plates thicker than mountains. Engines were tested that shook entire valleys. And deep within these hidden forges, humanity's answer to arrogance was being born. The first dreadnought was nothing like the ships the galaxy had known. It was not sleek or elegant. It was a fortress with engines, a city of steel that could move between stars. Its armor was layered so heavily that no weapon known could pierce it. Its cannons were the size of towers, built to tear entire fleets apart with a single volley. When it was finished, the workers stood in silence, their hands trembling as they looked at their creation. It was not just a ship. It was a warning, and it was not alone. All across human space, more dreadnoughts awakened. Slowly, silently, they rose from their hidden docks. Some were the size of continents. Some carried weapons that had been kept secret for generations. Together, they formed a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The soldiers who boarded them did not smile. They did not cheer. Their faces were hard, their eyes steady. These were not conquerors setting out for glory. These were survivors, men and women who had seen their families burned, their homes destroyed. They carried not pride, but vengeance. Across human worlds, families whispered prayers for them. Children held onto pictures of those lost, hoping these soldiers would bring justice. And the soldiers carried those hopes with them, carved deep into their hearts. The galaxy began to sense that something was wrong. Alien merchants reported unusual movements. Scouts spoke of strange signals in the void. Some governments whispered to one another, "Why are the humans so quiet? What are they planning?" But the invaders dismissed it all. Their arrogance still blinded them. They believed humans had no strength left to fight. They could not see what was rising. One night, in the cold emptiness of space, the first dreadnought moved. Its engines roared like thunder, echoing across the stars. It was so massive that nearby stations thought a planet was passing them by. The shadow swallowed moons, and etched on its steel hull, in letters visible from kilometers away, were two words that made human blood burn with unity. Never again. The crew stood in silence as it sailed out into the void. Some whispered the names of lost families. Others tightened their grips on their weapons. Everyone knew what this ship was built for. It was not defense. It was not negotiation. It was justice. Soon, the rest of the fleet followed. Dreadnought after dreadnought slipped into the dark. They carried weapons that could melt continents, missiles that could break apart entire planets, and shields that could endure storms of fire. But the greatest weapon of all was the fury of those who commanded them. The galaxy had seen human warships before, but these dreadnoughts were something else entirely. They were not ships of exploration. They were ships of ending. Rumors spread like wildfire. Traders swore they saw ships so big they blocked stars. Some claimed they heard human soldiers chanting in unison inside the steel halls. "We do not forgive. We do not forget." The invaders laughed at these stories, calling them lies meant to frighten children. But their laughter grew weaker as the weeks passed. Even from afar, they began to feel it, the silence before the storm was ending. Something was coming. The galaxy held its breath. And then, for the first time, the dreadnought fleet lit its engines together. Dozens of colossal ships burned against the black, their lights blazing like a new constellation in the night. Every starship nearby felt the shockwave. Every sensor screamed warnings. It was as if the very fabric of space groaned under their weight. At that moment, humanity's patience ended. The storm had awakened. The forgotten species had mocked, enslaved, and killed without mercy. Now, the price of that arrogance was at their door. And when the dreadnoughts moved, They did not move for victory. They moved for erasure. The galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had watched in silence as humanity's dreadnoughts awakened. They had risen like giants from the dark, their shadows stretching across the void. Yet still, the forgotten species mocked. They laughed at the idea that primitive humans could stand against them. They called the dreadnoughts clumsy, too large, too slow. But when the first strike came, no one laughed again. It began on the edge of human space, where an enemy fleet was preparing for another raid. Hundreds of alien warships floated confidently, their crews celebrating, believing humanity broken. They had no idea that death was already approaching. Out of the black came a shadow so large it swallowed the stars behind it. The first human dreadnought arrived. Its engines burned like suns, its hull gleamed with scars of steel, and its weapons glowed with restrained fury. The invaders sent warnings. They demanded surrender. They broadcast threats. The dreadnought did not answer. It only opened fire. The first volley was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Cannons the size of towers unleashed a storm of energy. Alien shields that had resisted countless battles shattered like glass. Entire ships broke apart in seconds, their debris scattering across the void. Panic swept the enemy fleet. They fired everything they had, missiles, lasers, plasma storms, but the dreadnought endured. Its armor absorbed the fury, layer after layer refusing to fall. For every weapon strike it suffered, it answered with 10 more. Within minutes, half the alien fleet was gone. Then more shadows arrived. From the dark came 2 more dreadnoughts, then 3, then an entire wall of steel. They appeared without warning, emerging from warp like thunder. Their guns roared together. Their missiles streaked across space like falling stars. The invaders screamed. Their commanders ordered retreat, but it was too late. The humans had come not to fight a battle. They had come to deliver a message. No survivors. Ships tried to flee, their engines burning desperately. The dreadnoughts hunted them like predators, tracking them across the stars, cutting them down one by one. Some enemy captains begged for mercy over open channels. They cried out, "We surrender! We yield!" The humans gave no reply. The guns kept firing. For the first time in history, the forgotten race felt fear. Real fear. They had thought humanity soft, weak, untested. Now they saw the truth. The humans were not weak, they had been holding back. And now, unleashed, their wrath was unstoppable. News spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Traitors who escaped the edge of the battlefield carried whispers of what they saw. A single human ship destroyed 100 of theirs. The dreadnoughts cannot be stopped. The humans have become monsters. Other alien empires trembled. They had seen humans trade and build peacefully. But now they were seeing something else, something terrifying. Humans did not fight for conquest. They fought for memory, for vengeance. For every life taken, they demanded repayment in fire. The first strike was not just a victory. It was a warning to all. On the burning remains of a once proud enemy fleet, a single human message was broadcast across the stars. For simple words, cold and merciless, "We do not forgive." Across the galaxy, silence followed. Even the strongest empires paused, wondering if they might one day face the same wrath. The forgotten species, however, could not pause. They had already chosen their path, and it led only to destruction. Their leaders called emergency councils. Their generals shouted in panic. They could not believe that one battle had cost them so much. But it was not just one battle, it was the beginning of their end. For the dreadnoughts were not built for one strike. They were built for war without mercy. And humanity had only just begun. As the dreadnoughts turned their massive hulls toward the next target, silence filled the void. Human crews prepared their weapons, their faces calm, their eyes cold. They carried no joy, no pride. They carried only duty. The forgotten race had awoken humanity's anger. And now, the galaxy would watch as an entire species was erased. This was the first strike of wrath. And it would not be the last. The first strike had shattered fleets, but it was only the beginning. Humanity did not stop. The dreadnoughts moved forward like a storm across the stars, their engines burning with purpose. Wherever they went, silence followed. The forgotten species had believed their worlds were safe. Their fleets were gone, but their home planets were guarded by massive defenses, energy shields, and armies that stretched for miles. Their leaders told their people, "The humans will not dare touch us here. Our worlds are eternal." They were wrong. The first planet fell without warning. One night, the skies above their capital lit with fire. From orbit, human dreadnoughts appeared, black shapes against the sun, weapons glowing like the eyes of gods. The ground shook as the first bombardment began. Cities crumbled in seconds. Towers that had stood for centuries turned to dust. The defenders fought desperately. Anti-air cannons filled the skies. Missile silos roared with fire. But the dreadnoughts absorbed it all. Their shields held. Their armor endured. And their reply was merciless. Entire districts vanished under single blasts. Oceans boiled. The air itself burned. Millions cried out, but the humans above did not hear, or perhaps they chose not to listen. The planet begged for mercy. Signals were sent across the stars. "We surrender. Please, no more." The dreadnoughts gave no reply, because humanity was not fighting for surrender. They were fighting for erasure. One by one, their worlds began to fall. The second planet's defenses lasted 3 days. The third held for only hours. The fourth never even fired a shot. The humans destroyed its shield generators before the defenders could react. By the time the dreadnoughts moved on, nothing remained but ash. The forgotten species began to panic. Their leaders shouted at each other in fear. Some demanded peace, others demanded vengeance. But their fleets were gone, their armies shattered, their people broken. No matter what they said, humanity did not stop. Across the galaxy, other races watched in horror. Never had they seen such cold determination. They whispered among themselves, "The humans do not conquer, they erase." And it was true. For every colony humans had lost, an enemy world burned. For every child taken, an enemy city vanished. For every human scream, an entire planet fell silent. The scale of destruction was unlike anything recorded before. The forgotten species tried to run. Some ships fled to neutral systems, begging for shelter. But no one dared to take them in. No empire wanted to risk human wrath. The fugitives were turned away, forced back into the storm that hunted them. Even their allies abandoned them. One by one, their voices were silenced. On one broadcast, a trembling alien general appeared, his face pale with terror. He begged across every channel, "We were wrong. We cannot fight them. Stop this before it is too late. They will destroy us all." But the humans were not listening to words. They were listening to memory, the memory of burning colonies, of children taken in chains, of families lost to fire. That memory demanded justice, and the dreadnoughts carried it out without hesitation. The galaxy soon realized the truth. Humanity was not angry at war itself. Humanity was angry at what had been taken from them. And when humans fight with that anger, they do not stop until nothing is left. The forgotten species understood too late. Their once proud worlds were gone. Their armies were gone. Their leaders were gone. And still, the dreadnoughts moved forward. It was said that on the last days of the war, when the final planet of that species was burning, the stars themselves seemed dimmer, as if even the universe mourned what had been unleashed. But for humans, there was no mourning. There was only silence, because silence was all that remained. The war was over, though no treaty had been signed. No diplomats had shaken hands. No promises had been exchanged. It ended in only one way, through silence. The forgotten species, once loud and proud, was gone. Their fleets were broken, their armies destroyed, their worlds burned to ash. From their mighty capitals to their smallest colonies, nothing remained. Where cities once shone with light, now there was only dust floating in the void. And with their destruction came a terrible quiet. In the councils of the galaxy, alien leaders sat in stunned silence. They had seen wars before. They had seen empires rise and fall. But they had never seen this, An entire species erased so completely that even its name was forbidden to speak. The humans had not announced victory. They had not boasted. They had not demanded tribute. They had simply stopped. The dreadnoughts, those monstrous ships that had burned stars with their fury, now drifted silently near human space. They did not chase, they did not conquer. They stood like silent guardians, their black hulls a reminder of what had been done. And the galaxy trembled. Across distant worlds, whispers spread. Merchants told tales in hushed voices. I saw it myself. Planets burning. They left nothing. Refugees spoke of the dreadnoughts with shaking hands. Their guns tore through entire fleets. No one survived. Children on alien worlds grew up hearing one warning repeated again and again. Never make the humans angry. For while the fury had ended, the memory of it remained. The survivors of other races who had once mocked humanity now looked at them with new eyes. Where once they had seen naive explorers, now they saw executioners cloaked in steel. The humans had shown two faces, one of kindness, one of wrath. And no one wished to see the second again. But what unsettled the galaxy most was humanity's silence. Other victors had celebrated in the past. They had carved statues, sung songs, and raised their banners high. But not the humans. They did not celebrate. They did not smile. They did not speak of their victory as triumph. Instead, they mourned in silence. In human cities, people lit candles for the lost. Families placed names of the dead on walls of remembrance. The soldiers returned, not as heroes, but as ghosts who carried too many memories. Their eyes held the weight of what they had seen, of what they had done. For though the enemy had deserved their fate, erasure left scars on humanity as well. Mothers asked why their children had to die before vengeance came. Children asked why their fathers never returned. And every answer was the same, because arrogance had awakened fury. The galaxy watched closely, fearful of what humans might do next. Some believed they would turn their dreadnoughts on others. Some believed humanity would demand control of star councils. Some even whispered that humans would seek to conquer all. But the humans did not move. They stayed within their space, building quietly, healing their wounds. Their dreadnoughts floated like monuments of war, silent and cold. And that silence spoke louder than any threat. It said, "We do not need to conquer you. But if you harm us, we will erase you." The forgotten species was proof. Generations passed, but still no one dared to speak their name. Not in stories, not in history, not even in secret. Their memory was dust, swallowed by silence. They had mocked humanity, and in return they were removed from existence itself. In the great halls of alien councils, one sentence was carved into stone as a warning for the future. The last species that made humans angry, no one remembers their name, and so the silence continued. It was a silence heavier than war, heavier than death. It was the silence of fear, of respect, of memory. Because the galaxy had learned one lesson that would never be forgotten. Humans may be peaceful. Humans may be kind. But if you strike at their heart, if you burn their homes and laugh at their pain, then you awaken something no world can survive. The wrath of humanity. And when that wrath is finished, only silence remains. The stars had gone quiet. Where once fleets clashed and empires roared, now only silence remained. The forgotten species was gone, wiped from existence so completely that even their name had vanished. And in the stillness that followed, the galaxy carried a new shadow, the legacy of humanity's wrath. On alien worlds, parents told their children bedtime stories. But unlike old legends of heroes or monsters, these stories carried a warning. There was once a race that angered the humans. They are gone now. Their name is forgotten. Remember this, child. Never make the humans angry. The children would ask, what happened to them? Where did they go? And the parents would fall silent, their eyes dark with fear. They could not answer, because there was no answer. The species was erased, their records burned, their history unspoken. They had been swallowed by the void. Across the councils of great powers, leaders remembered what they had seen. They had watched human dreadnoughts turn fleets to ash. They had seen planets vanish under fire. They had heard the screams of those who begged for mercy and received only silence in return. Now, whenever the word human was spoken in those halls, voices lowered and eyes turned uneasy. For humanity had shown two faces. The first face was familiar: explorers, traders, builders, a species eager to learn, eager to share. A people who brought medicines to cure alien diseases, who built trade routes that connected distant worlds, who laughed easily and made friendships across the stars. The second face was something else, something darker, a face born of fire and grief, a face that carried no mercy, no hesitation. This was the face of a predator awakened, of a storm unleashed. And once seen, no one wished to see it again. Other races whispered of it in secret. They are dangerous, some said. They should be feared. But others, wiser, spoke differently. They should be respected, for they do not strike without reason. They do not kill without cause. But if you harm them, they will end you. And so the legacy grew. Generations passed, and still the name of the forgotten species remained unsaid. Libraries deleted their records. Historians erased their mention. Even their ruins were left untouched, for no one dared to explore them. It was as if the galaxy itself agreed. Their memory must remain silent. Among humans, the war was not celebrated. There were no victory parades, no songs of glory. Instead, there were walls of remembrance. Names of the lost carved into stone, candles lit in silent rows, flowers laid by grieving hands. Humanity did not see it as conquest, they saw it as survival. But for the rest of the galaxy, it was something far greater. It was a reminder carved into the stars. The message was clear. We are kind until you burn our homes. We are patient until you chain our children. But if you awaken our anger, we will erase you. That message shaped galactic politics for centuries. Treaties were signed quickly with humans. Borders were respected without question. When disputes arose, alien leaders always asked themselves the same question before acting. Will this make the humans angry? Most chose silence. The dreadnoughts, though rarely seen after the war, remained a symbol of that silence. They drifted near human space like watchful giants, their black hulls catching starlight, their cannons cold but ready. To many, they were monuments of fear. To humans, they were guardians, silent promises that what had happened once would never happen again. Some alien scholars tried to warn their people, do not fear them blindly. Fear only what can awaken them. But even these voices were soft, drowned by the memory of planets burning. And so, across the stars, the legacy of fear endured. No one remembered the forgotten species. Not their worlds, not their culture, not even their name. But everyone remembered the humans, the calm traders who could become executioners, the explorers who could become storms. And whenever a child asked, is it true? Can humans really destroy an entire race? The answer was always the same. Yes, and that is why we must never find out again. Thus the story ended not with celebration, but with silence. The silence of erased names. The silence of burning worlds. The silence that came after fury. And in that silence, the galaxy learned its most important lesson. Do not awaken humanity's wrath. For it is not war. It is extinction.